Hello and welcome to the Success Showcase. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin from the Modern Observer Group. And with me, as always, is Chip Janiszewski from the Happiness and Success GPS. Chip, how are you doing today?
Doing great. How are you, Eric?
Fantastic. We are well into spring and summer weather is starting to appear here and there. Flowers are starting to bloom. Things are going well.
Absolutely. Had a lot of fun this weekend. My mom's 90 years old. She had a great day yesterday. My wife, my daughter-in-law, seeing my granddaughter, all that stuff. So happy Mother's Day to all you ladies out there. You deserve it.
And of course, in other news, things are starting to open up more and more. So over the next week, a whole bunch of states are going to start opening up and start getting back to normal. So we're looking forward to that.
We sure are.
So we've got a special guest this week, Allison DeBlasio from The Connection. Allison, welcome.
Hi, Eric. Thank you for having me on.
It's our pleasure. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and what The Connection is and what they do?
Sure. So I am the Director of Communications and Development at The Connection. The Connection is a statewide human services nonprofit that partners with people finding themselves in difficult circumstances. We help people with the complex problems of homelessness, substance abuse treatment, behavioral health care, community justice rehabilitation, so folks reentering their communities after incarceration, among other things. We do many things at The Connection. And I have been at The Connection for about 5 years. Prior to that, I had a long career in producing special events in the for-profit arena. So I like to be able to bring my for-profit skills to the nonprofit community.
Fantastic. Now, of course, you said you've been dealing with, The Connection deals with homelessness, deals with people handling mental issues. We have seen over the past year a lot of that. So how has The Connection adapted to COVID and what kind of difficulties did you have?
Sure. Well, it's been an interesting year. I mean, who knew that it would be like this for this long? And it's still, things are opening up, but things are still a challenge. I think I was just reading the news this morning, some things about the variant. So here at The Connection, we're considered essential services. So we have remained open and functional throughout the whole pandemic. We did a lot of modifying our services to make sure that we could still access people. I think that one of the biggest challenges that we had is we have a lot of clients that are community-based, so we meet them, in their homes or out in community, but they may or may not have a lot of technology skills. So that made it a challenge in terms of connecting with them virtually, right? Because they may not have had devices or the right skills to be able to use those devices to connect with their caseworkers. So we really had to do that in a customized fashion. We had to meet our clients where they were at. In some cases, we were able to modify. In some cases, we weren't. So our frontline staff was definitely still meeting with folks in person. And obviously, any of our residential programs were fully operational throughout the whole pandemic. Those modified in kind of a different way. We were able to put protocols in place so that folks had isolation space if someone in the programs were to get sick. We were prepared for that. We were also able to reconfigure our physical spaces to allow for that, which meant that if somebody did get ill and they didn't require hospitalization, we could keep them with us safely without continuing to spread. When we had some outbreaks, we were able to do that. And that, of course, allowed us to keep folks out of the hospital because we didn't want to add to the drain on the capacity in the hospital system. And that was really a big success. And there were a couple of pockets of, we had someone get sick in one program where we knew they weren't going to be able to, just where they were in the recovery, they weren't going to be able to do what would be necessary to safely recover without spreading anything to anybody else inside their program. So we were able to work cooperatively with the hospital system in New Haven to find them that particular person a bed so that they could recover safely in an environment where they could do what they needed to do to get better. So we really did a good job, I think, within our programs of working with the community to make sure that we had things in place, that we were planning ahead. When we did have outbreaks, we were able to respond to them, which I'm really proud of seeing our organization go through that. And then as far as our employees, we were a very in-person organization a year ago. And our IT team was able to redeploy technology to our staff to allow us to continue to work remotely as needed. For instance, I was home from November through April. And I was able to do that because our technology team was able to make sure that our staff had the equipment they needed to do that, the training that we needed to do. Aside from working with our clients, we all, of course, need to be able to access our own files and our own technology to keep ourselves safe too. So it's really been quite the year.
It really has. Did you see any shift in the type of difficulties your clients were having, or did they pretty much have the same issues before COVID and after?
The types of people that we help, I think they're pretty similar now versus a year ago in most of our programs. I think that we learned a lot about how to help folks kind of live through this kind of circumstances. Even something simple as wearing a mask could be difficult for somebody. Somebody with a trauma history could feel traumatized from that. Somebody with mental health challenges could just have difficulty complying or even understanding why it's necessary. So there's a lot around that. I would say that that the type of folks that we serve is not really that different at this point in time in terms of that. And of course, there's a spectrum, right? Like not every program that we have sees really severe mental illness in it. So there's a wide variety. We work with some families too in our supportive housing for families program. So of course, the approach with them, helping them through a pandemic is different because they're in their own homes and we're meeting with them at their homes. So it's all a variety. With 42 programs, you can imagine they're all different.
Can you tell us a little bit about the most common programs?
Sure. So our largest one is the program I just mentioned, which is the Supportive Housing for Families program. It's a program that's a partnership with DCF, and it works with families that have a open child welfare case and are in danger of becoming homeless or maybe in unsafe housing. So we use housing as an intervention for child welfare within that program, and we get those families placed in HUD-inspected homes. We work with them in terms of providing individual case management, helping them with life skills, vocational work as needed if they need to go back to, we need to help them go back to school so they can get a better job, that kind of thing. So that's one of our largest programs. We also have a number of community justice work release programs, both in New Haven and in Middletown. And so those are 24-hour residential programs where we have folks that are stepping down from incarceration. That's another group of programs we have. Also, we provide individual case management there, individualized support programs for them. We make sure everybody has connections to other community providers because we know that we can't do everything for our clients. So we make sure that we have good partnerships there for folks as well.
Yeah, looking at your website too, you're into education. You have a series of sessions that you can do for that connection training series, and then also the Institute for Innovative Practice. Can you tell us about those?
Sure. Yeah. So I'll start with our training program. Really, that was born from what we put in place for our own staff, which was a robust department to provide professional learning opportunities for folks within our own staff. And what happened is our CEO had the vision that we could take that knowledge and that, essentially perk or professional growth that we're providing for our own staff and make it available to external participants, to the community. So 3 years into this, now what you see on our website is a robust catalog that anybody from any other organizations can come and join us. If you go to our website, which is theconnectioninc.org, you can find the training catalog and you can look at what you can offer. We provide CEUs from NASW and the CCB so that people can use that for their licensure as needed. We have some package deals for that.
If I can just stop you there, for those of our listeners not familiar, can you define what those initials that you just rattled off were?
Sure. So the NASW is the National Association for Social Workers, and that is for folks who might be like licensed professional social workers, licensed clinical social workers. You can use those CEUs to maintain your licensure. And then the CCB is it's another board for Connecticut for folks who have addiction specialist or licensed addiction counselor professional certification. So they can use that for the same thing. They can get their CEUs and renew their license every year.
Excellent. So before I interrupted you, there was another something else you were going to be talking about.
What I was going to say is that we offer some special packages for folks that are looking to renew their license. So you can look at us like a one-stop shop for those CEUs, or you could pay one flat fee and then be able to take enough hours to get it taken care of for the year. So you don't have to keep hunting around for different places to go for that training.
Okay, you're going to tell us about the Institute for Innovative Practice?
Sure. So the Institute for Innovative Practice is kind of the research arm of the Connection, or that's what it was historically. Really what we do there is focus on the social determinants of health, which are the way that people live, learn, work, and play, and how those things impact somebody's personal health. And so one of the ways that we're looking at it with the Institute is, again, with this focus on training, is to find ways to help improve other organizations, because that's going to improve all of our communities. So we're, again, using that same knowledge that we're doing for the training programs and helping other smaller organizations that might not have the resources that the Connection has.
Excellent. So you're not just helping your clients directly, but you're helping other nonprofits to help their clients.
Absolutely. That's what we're trying to do. We recognize that we're one of the larger organizations across the state. And so anything that we can do to help other organizations thrive, it all helps everyone we're trying to help as well. Everything that we're trying to do for our own clients.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I mean, I'm looking at your Facebook page. Says your mission is building safe, healthy, caring communities and inspiring people to reach their full potential as productive and valued citizens. And obviously, the more that you help other people do that outside of your organization, that's just wonderful, what you're doing. So obviously, the events that you had last year, I know you have an annual conference and some other things that you do events-wise. I'm sure that those were quite effective last year. And are they coming back a little bit more normally this year?
Yeah, good question. So last year we did hold we have an annual road race that takes place in Hartford. It's called the CFA Society Corporate 5K. This year it's going to be August 5th, and we are going to hold it in person. It's going to be, it starts and ends at Bushnell Park on the carousel side of the park. It's a great day. It's a really flat course. We always have some fast runners, but don't let that scare you. It's definitely also walkable. It's always a great time. So that's going to be happening. We also held our golf tournament last year in person, which was an interesting challenge. I feel like we planned the golf tournament about a dozen times because all the restrictions kept changing. But this year, I'm hoping it's going to be a little bit more normal. We're not going to have a cap on our golfers, and I don't think we're going to end up having a cap on our dinner guests or the number of people that we have. And that this year is going to be taking place August 30th, which is a Monday, and that's going to be down at the Great River Golf Club in Milford.
Excellent.
We're always looking for sponsors and people to participate in both events. The dollars that we raise at those events goes right back to support our programs and the initiatives that we have here at the Connection. So there's a great value to the community. It's also a great way to sponsor. I mean, I see road race t-shirts from 5 years ago sometimes just walking around the grocery store. So it's a great place to put your logo.
Yes, it is. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys also work with the foster care system, don't you?
We do, and May is the Foster Care Awareness Month, so this is a good question to bring up. The Connection has a program called Connecting Children and Families, and that is what's called a therapeutic foster care program. What that means is that we provide a lot of support for our families. This is usually a program for youth with complex backgrounds, and we make sure that we have clinical care for the children and also tailored support for foster parents. One of the great things about becoming a foster parent at the Connection is that we make sure that we help you walk through the certification process. There's a number of things that you have to do to get yourself set up with DCF. So we make sure that our staff is available to help anybody who's interested in becoming a foster family through that process, because it can be kind of complex. So we make sure that we take the time to do that for you.
Do you work with other organizations that do that also? I mean, we've had Wheeler Clinic in the Chamber of Commerce and others too. So obviously, it's a challenge for all of you together. So do you work with them too, or?
Yeah, absolutely. We try to collaborate with other organizations when possible. We just put up a Facebook post, I think it was it's coming this week, that's a collaboration with providers across the state. There's like a statewide initiative, so we'll be participating and sharing that on social as well. So we try to be good teammates. We try to be at the table with everybody. There's enough to go around, is sort of the way I look at it, that there's enough people to be helped that we can all, participate in making things better for children in our state.
Yeah. So certainly, well, especially this year, you've had your work cut out for you, but you're dealing with what seem to be perpetual problems. So as you know, as you're working with your clients, you've also got the research that you talked about. Where do you see all of this going? How can we sort of, try to move past all these problems and, get folks in safe homes and, where are we going wrong? What can we do to, sort get on the right path?
Oh, that's a big question. Well, I think that in a lot of ways, making an environment within the state where providers like the Connection can all work together and collaborate. If it's a minor thing like a social media campaign, and that helps get more families engaged in taking care of children who need extra help, that's all part of the process. I think our CEO here at the Connection has put a big focus on collaboration and creating good partnerships she's been the CEO since I started there at the Connection. And she's really put a very important focus on making sure that we have healthy relationships with our state funders, with other collaborating organizations. And that's really paid off, especially this year in the pandemic. For instance, we have a nice relationship with the Community Health Center, who's doing a lot of those mass vaccination sites. And they had some extra doses, contacted our Eddie shelter, which is one of our homeless shelters, and we're able to bring over those doses. They were going to expire, so they wanted to make sure that they went to folks that were living in congregate care, so they weren't, they could get them in. They brought them over to our location, and we were also able to vaccinate on the same day some clients from other organizations. So really, I think that kind of cross-organization collaboration is one of the most important things that we all need to do going forward, because things like that are good examples of how we can work together to make everybody better. If we were seeing those other organizations as competition and not sharing the resources that came to us, we wouldn't have been able to get as many people vaccinated. And I think that's a huge takeaway, that how important it is to be able to do that.
Oh yeah, collaboration is something that we talk about all the time. And obviously, just getting the word out, the awareness of the problems, number one, and then number two, what are the resources where people can go to address these problems? I would imagine that you probably have you'd have a lot of those on your website, I would imagine, as far as where to go for different solutions to the different problems that are out there. But that's really, really important to have for people to go. Obviously, once COVID started, a whole lot of things went up about that. So I'd imagine you have a lot of that yourself too.
Yes. I mean, I think the most important thing for people to know about is that if you're experiencing homelessness, the thing that you need to do to get help is to call 211 within the state. A lot of people don't know that the state has what are called coordinated access networks, and they're located in different counties across the state. In Middletown, it's the Middletown, Meriden, and Wallingford, they call them CANs. And those groups actually help match people with appropriate housing. But all housing across the state of Connecticut, if you need it on an emergency basis, you have to call 211, and they'll get you through an intake process. A lot of people, if you haven't found yourself in those circumstances, don't necessarily know what to do. So I always try to mention 211 because that is what you need to do. It used to be that you could sort of just kind of walk into a homeless shelter if you were experiencing an emergency like that. But now what you need to do is call 211. They'll do an intake with you. They'll walk you through the process, and they'll get you matched with the resources that you need to support your safe housing.
Excellent. Now, the clients you deal with, I mean, we've talked about homelessness, we've talked about behavioral health services, folks who are incarcerated. All of these have a certain stigma attached to them. Have you found that it's difficult to get folks to come forward and say, I need help?
I think that's always the hardest part of the process. When I speak to some of our program staff, that's one of the things that I hear about. It is certainly difficult to raise your hand and say, I need help with something. I think anybody can relate to how hard that is. If you've gone through any sort of personal crisis, you know what that's like, whether it's finding you don't have a roof over your head or not. But I think we all have experienced, the difficulty in raising your hand and saying, I need some help. I think that's definitely a big piece of the puzzle there. And we try to approach those interactions with the most compassion. We are a trauma-informed organization, which means that we consider everybody's background and lived experience before they get to us. And we try to make sure that we're providing the most compassionate customer service with that in mind.
Fantastic. Yeah, it really is so important that if you find yourself in a situation, to reach out and get assistance. And as you said earlier, the state of Connecticut has 211 set up so that people can call and get connected to the organizations they need. Other than 211, which obviously is for the emergencies, how do you reach out to potential clients? How do they find you?
Sure. Well, many of the programs that we have at the Connection, we receive referrals from our state partners, and that tends to be how folks get to us. In terms of the programs that we have several for substance abuse treatment where you can reach out to the program itself and you can get help. You can call our organization. We have a toll-free line where people can call and access our services. And the number for that is 855-HELP-955. So it's 855-435-7955. You can call that number, and our staff will help you navigate our own systems in terms of what you can self-refer and depending on what you're looking for. They're really good about redirecting folks if they need to go through another avenue to reach us. We also have a program for homeless youth that has an on-call line. Again, it's really more, you still need to use 211 to access that program. It's for folks who are between the ages of 18 and 24. But we do have an emergency line, and we'll help people make that phone call to 211 because it is so hard and complex. And that program's referral line is available on our website as well. It's called the START program.
Great. Now, with all of this going on, you guys also have your own radio show, don't you?
We sure do. It airs on Sunday mornings on WTIC 1080. Our CEO hosts it along with Ann Baldwin, who some people may remember from when she was on the air as a newscaster here in Connecticut. I know I did when I first met her. And that is designed to get the word out about our programs, share stories from our program staff and our clients, and important community resources. It's got a real focus on recovery. And recovery means not just substance abuse recovery, obviously. It can also means recovering from mental illness or any of the other things that we help our folks with. We look at recovery as a broad word.
Great. So, following up on recovery, you're stepping in. Do you have any success stories that you could share with us?
Well, I don't work in the program itself, but of course I do hear some of the anecdotal stories. I did get a chance to hear a family speak once. This was a program graduate of our Supportive Housing for Families program. And it was a mother who was living in unstable housing in Hartford, and our program staff were able to help her move into a single family home. She was working 3 jobs. And I also want to add, she was current on her rent when we began working with her. I think sometimes that's a stigma thing too, that everyone comes to us sort of in disarray. But she was stable. She just wasn't in the best of circumstances in terms of where she was living. She had, I want to say, 5 children. We were able to get her into a single family home so that she didn't have to worry about neighbors, was in a safer area where her children could play outside. But the biggest win was that she was working 3 jobs to stay afloat financially when we met her. And from working with our vocational staff, they were able to help her find a better paying job so she could take that 3 jobs down into 1 and still manage to feed her family and support themselves in that single family home. It was really inspiring to see her share her story, because I think that's super impactful and not always the way people think about it when we talk about having, some of the most extreme cases at our organization. But I think in that instance, here was a person just struggling to stay afloat, and she was current on her bills. She just needed a little extra help to find a better opportunity financially and be able to support her family and move them into a much safer place for them. So that was a really great story to get to check that out and hear her talk about it firsthand.
That is a great story. And I think it's important that, our listeners realize that, this was someone who, current on all her bills, was maintaining, she was working 3 jobs to do it, but she was working through, she was, doing everything she could. A lot of times when people think of someone who, needs help from a nonprofit, their idea is not somebody who actually has that much going on. And it's important to realize that, yes, you know what? Even though you've got your bills up to date, if you're struggling in an unsafe area, if you're dealing with, having to do 3 jobs to keep afloat, that yes, there are still resources for you to help move you along and get you out of that situation into a better one.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it speaks to what you asked before about the difficulty in asking for help. I'm not sure that hadn't she not met us through a program like supportive housing for families, I don't know that she would have asked anybody for help. She was figuring it out. But with just a little bit, she was able to do so much to improve things for her family. And I think that's really, a triumph to that client, but also a good reminder to us all that sometimes you do need your neighbors. You do need to raise your hands and say, I just need a little bit of help.
All right. We're coming up on the end of our time. So, Chip, what do you think is the big takeaway from this episode?
It's amazing and wonderful what you're doing out there. And I think it's so important to make people aware of what's going on out there. I wasn't super aware of your organization until we found out we were having you on the podcast. So I went to your website, which I normally do to prepare, and your website, theconnectioninc.org, is full of information and resources there. So it's really important to do that. And obviously, you folks out there in Connecticut, remember the number 211. I did not realize that if you ran into a homeless situation, you could tell people to call that number to get help. So it all starts with that, but it's so amazing what you're doing out there. And if there's ways that we can help you out, obviously we're, proficient in networking and so on and so forth. So if you're looking for other resources, people to connect with and so on and so forth, we're there for you. But it's been a pleasure meeting you and a pleasure having you on.
Wonderful. Thank you both. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about the good work that we do at the Connection across the state.
Absolutely. It's been great having you. And I really think, for me, the big takeaway is the range of people you help and the number of services that are out there for people in need. But again, people need to say, okay, yes, I need help. So if somebody needs help, or if somebody wants to contribute and help out the Connection, how can they do so?
Well, you could take a look at our website. There's a whole section of the website for giving, which is where you can look at the types of partnerships we're looking for, ways to give donations. It's got information about our special events. You could certainly, through the website, contact us if there's something more specific than what you can find on the website. We're always available for a conversation. We're happy to meet new people, other businesses that are looking to get engaged with their community. We're always looking for new partnerships. And even other organizations that do similar work to what we do. Is kind of the wonderful thing about the nonprofit world is that people they're not really competition, they're collaborators. And we try to look at it like that.
And that's a great message. Thank you so much for being with us. You've been listening to the Success Showcase. You can catch us every week at xvadio.com/podcasts. You can also find us on the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and wherever you find podcasts. Remember, make this your best week ever and make next week even better. We'll see you then.